A 6-year-old boy interrupted The Tonight Show to tell Johnny Carson, "I'm ready now." Johnny asked what he meant. The answer made him collapse in tears and stopped the entire broadcast. It was October 28, 1986. A Tuesday night at NBC Studios in Burbank. Johnny Carson was 40 minutes into The Tonight Show, performing his monologue for an audience of 200 people and millions watching at home. He just delivered a joke about Ronald Reagan when a small voice cut through the laughter. Mr. Carson, can I tell you something?" The voice was so quiet that at first Johnny didn't hear it. He continued with his next joke, but the voice came again, louder this time, more urgent. "Mr. Carson, please, I need to tell you something." Johnny stopped mid-sentence. The audience went quiet. He looked out into the crowd, squinting past the bright stage lights, trying to locate the source of the small voice. "Someone has a question?" Johnny asked, half joking, trying to figure out what was happening. "Me. I do." The voice was coming from the third row center section. Johnny walked to the edge of the stage and peered into the audience. That's when he saw him, a tiny boy, maybe 6 years old, standing on his seat, waving his small hand frantically. Even from the stage, Johnny could see that something was wrong with this child. He was painfully thin. His skin was pale. He was wearing a baseball cap that looked too big for his small head. The audience had turned to look at the boy. Some people were smiling, thinking this was cute. Others looked concerned. "Well, hello there," Johnny said gently. "What's your name, young man?" "David. David Porter." "Mr. Carson, I need to tell you something important." Johnny glanced at his stage manager, who looked confused and alarmed. This had never happened before. The Tonight Show had strict protocols. Audience members didn't just interrupt the show, but something in the boy's voice, something desperate and sincere, made Johnny ignore every protocol he'd ever learned. "Okay, David," Johnny said. "Why don't you come up here and tell me what's so important?" The audience applauded, thinking this was a planned bit, but it wasn't. Johnny was improvising, following an instinct he couldn't explain. David's mother, sitting beside him, tried to pull him back down. "David, no, honey, sit down. We can't." But David was already climbing over the people in his row, making his way to the aisle. He was so small and frail that 2 audience members had to help him navigate the steps. When David finally reached the stage, Johnny knelt down to be at eye level with him. Up close, Johnny could see what the stage lights had hidden. This child was very sick. His eyes were sunken. His arms were like twigs. The baseball cap he wore was covering a head that was clearly bald lead from chemotherapy. Johnny felt his heart break right there, but he kept his professional smile in place. "Hi, David. How old are you?" "6. I'm 6 years old." "6 years old. That's a great age. What did you want to tell me, buddy?" David looked out at the audience, then back at Johnny. His small face was serious. Far too serious for a 6-year-old. "Mr. Carson," David said. His voice cleared despite its smallness. "I wanted to tell you that I'm ready now." Johnny smiled, confused. "You're ready? Ready for what?" David looked at Johnny with eyes that held too much knowledge, too much understanding for someone so young. "I'm ready to go to heaven," David said simply. "My doctor said, I won't see Christmas, but I got to see you tonight. So now I'm ready." The studio went completely silent. Johnny felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Around him he could hear audience members gasping, some already crying. Johnny looked at this tiny boy, this 6-year-old child who had just announced his own death with the calm acceptance of someone who'd already made peace with it, and something inside Johnny Carson broke. Tears started streaming down Johnny's face. On live television in front of millions of viewers, the king of late night began to cry. David, seeing Johnny cry, reached up with his small hand and touched Johnny's cheek. "It's okay, Mr. Carson. Please don't be sad. Got to see you. That makes it okay." That gesture, that tiny hand touching his face with such compassion, completely undid Johnny. He pulled David into a hug and just held him, crying into this little boy's shoulder while 200 people watched in stunned silence. Finally, Johnny pulled back, wiped his eyes, and spoke into his microphone, his voice shaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. Long break. This is more important than the show." The stage manager signaled to cut to commercial. And as soon as the red lights on the cameras went off, Johnny stood up, still holding David's hand. "Ed," Johnny called to Ed McMahon. "Help me get David and his mom backstage." Ed, who was also crying, immediately went into the audience to find David's mother. The woman was sobbing, overwhelmed by what had just happened. Several audience members had their arms around her, comforting her. Backstage in Johnny's dressing room, the full story came out. David's mother, Sarah Porter, was a single mom from Pasadena. Her husband had left when David was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 2 years earlier. David had been through chemotherapy, radiation, a bone marrow transplant. Nothing had worked. The cancer kept coming back. 3 weeks ago, David's oncologist had sat Sarah down and told her that there was nothing more they could do. David had maybe 2 months left, probably less. He might not make it to Christmas. David had taken the news better than Sarah had. He had asked his doctor if there was anything he could do before he died. The doctor had suggested making a list of things he wanted to do, a bucket list for a 6-year-old. David's list had 3 items: eat ice cream for breakfast, see the ocean, and meet Johnny Carson. Sarah had managed the first 2 easily, but getting tickets to The Tonight Show had seemed impossible. Then 5 days ago, a co-worker's friend who worked at NBC had found 2 tickets. Not great seats, row 3 off to the side, but they were inside the building where Johnny Carson performed. David had been so excited. He'd worn his favorite shirt, the one that was now too big for his shrinking body. He'd put on his baseball cap to hide his bald head. He'd used every ounce of his energy to stay awake and alert during the show. But David had also made a decision. He wasn't just going to watch Johnny Carson from the audience. He was going to talk to him. He was going to tell Johnny what he'd been too afraid to tell his own mother. That he was ready. That he wasn't scared anymore. That it was okay. "I'm so sorry," Sarah sobbed to Johnny. "I tried to stop him. I didn't know he was going to." Johnny held up his hand. "Don't apologize." David did exactly what he needed to do. He looked at the little boy who was sitting on the couch looking tired but peaceful. "David, you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. You know that." David smiled. "You're brave too, Mr. Carson. You cry on TV. That's really brave." Johnny laughed through his tears. "Yeah, well, you bring out the best in me, buddy." Johnny sat down next to David. "Can I ask you something? You said you're ready to go to heaven because you got to see me tonight. But David, I'm just a guy who tells jokes on TV. Why was seeing me so important?" David thought about this for a moment. "My dad left because I got sick. He said it was too hard to watch me. But you're on TV every night. Even when you're sad, you come back the next night. You don't leave. So, I thought if I could see you before I go, I could tell you thank you for not leaving." Johnny completely lost it. He pulled David close and just held him. This time not caring who saw or who was watching. This 6-year-old child dying of cancer had just thanked him for not leaving, for showing up every night, for being there. "David," Johnny whispered, "I'm the one who should thank you. You just taught me something really important." Outside the dressing room, the show was in chaos. The audience was still in their seats, many of them crying. The producers didn't know what to do. Should they continue the show? Should they send everyone home? Johnny made the decision for them. He walked back out on stage, still wearing the tear stains on his face, and addressed the audience directly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said, his voice steady now. "I've been doing this show for 24 years. 24 years of jokes and interviews and silly bits. And tonight, a 6-year-old boy reminded me what really matters." He paused, collecting himself. "David Porter is backstage right now. He has terminal cancer. He's not going to see Christmas. And tonight, he interrupted my show to tell me he's ready to die because he got to see me first. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "I can't continue with the show tonight," Johnny said. "It doesn't feel right, but I want to do something for David, and I need your help." Johnny explained his idea. David loved The Tonight Show. So Johnny wanted to record a special episode just for David. A show that would be David's to keep to watch whenever he wanted. And Johnny wanted the audience to be part of it. For the next hour, with cameras rolling, Johnny and the audience created a show just for David Porter. Johnny told his best jokes. Doc Severson and the band played David's favorite songs. Ed McMahon brought David out on stage and let him sit at Johnny's desk. The audience sang, "You Are My Sunshine" to David. 200 voices blending together in a moment of pure heartbreaking beauty. At the end, Johnny sat down next to David and spoke directly to him. "David, you said you're ready to go to heaven, but I want you to know something. Because of tonight, because of you, you're going to be remembered forever. Everyone in this room, everyone watching at home, they're never going to forget David Porter. You made a difference tonight, buddy. A real difference." David smiled, his small face glowing. "Can I come back tomorrow night?" Johnny laughed, crying again. "You can come back every night if you want to." After the show, Johnny spent 3 more hours with David and Sarah. He gave David a personal tour of the studio. He let David try on his jackets. He signed photographs, books, anything David wanted. And before they left, Johnny did something that nobody knew about except his closest staff. He wrote a check to Sarah Porter for $50,000. When she tried to refuse it, Johnny insisted. "This isn't charity," he said. "This is for whatever David wants. Toys, trips, ice cream for breakfast every day. And it's for you for after, for whatever you need." Then Johnny made a phone call to his personal physician, one of the best oncologists in Los Angeles. He arranged for David to be transferred to UCLA Medical Center, where he would receive the best comfort care available. No more pain, just peace. David Porter lived for 7 more weeks after that night. 7 weeks that were supposed to be impossible. He didn't make it to Christmas, but he made it to Thanksgiving. He spent his final days comfortable, pain-free, watching the special episode Johnny had made for him over and over again. When David died on December 3, 1986, Johnny Carson was one of the first people Sarah called. Johnny came to the funeral, sat in the back row, and cried along with everyone else. But what Johnny did next wasn't discovered until after his own death in 2005. In his will, Johnny had left instructions for a massive donation to UCLA Medical Center to build a new pediatric oncology wing. The donation was for $10 million, and it came with one condition. The wing had to be named David's Place. Today, if you visit UCLA Medical Center, you'll find David's Place, a state-of-the-art pediatric cancer treatment center that has helped thousands of children. There's a plaque at the entrance with a photo of David Porter and a quote from Johnny Carson. "He taught me what bravery really means." The special episode Johnny recorded for David was never broadcast publicly, but Johnny had made copies and he sent them to children's hospitals across the country. Those tapes are still used today in pediatric oncology wards, showing young cancer patients that it's okay to be scared, okay to cry, and okay to be brave. The story of Johnny Carson and David Porter reminds us that sometimes the most important moments in life happen when we stop what we're doing and pay attention to what's right in front of us. Johnny could have ignored David's interruption. He could have had security escort the boy back to his seat. He could have continued with his show like nothing happened. Instead, he stopped everything. He knelt down to a dying child's level. He listened. He cried. He cared. And in doing so, he gave David Porter exactly what he needed. Not just a meeting with his hero, but a moment of being truly seen, truly heard, truly valued. Johnny Carson spent 30 years making America laugh. But on October 28, 1986, he did something more important than telling jokes. He gave a dying 6-year-old boy permission to be ready, permission to let go, permission to find peace, and in return, David gave Johnny a gift that would change him forever. The understanding that fame and success mean nothing if you don't use them to help the people who need you most. If this story moved you, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the smallest voices sometimes carry the biggest truths. Have you ever had a moment where a child taught you something profound? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the legends who proved that stopping everything for one person is sometimes the most important thing you can do.